Hi, and welcome to Water Wisdom. I'm Luke with the Alachua County Environmental Protection Department. In this series, we'll increase your water wisdom with weekly topics and interviews discussing the amazing waters in and around Alachua County. Today, we're discussing water conservation. April is Water Conservation Month, and Water Wisdom is doing our part to educate you about what water conservation is and why it's so important for us to conserve our shared natural water resources. So let's go ahead and get started and learn about what water conservation is.
Water conservation is the use of policies and actions that will help preserve the amount of available fresh water for future generations to use. Why do we care so much about water conservation? Did you know the Environmental Protection Agency predicts at least 40 states will have water shortages by 2024? Many think the Earth has plenty of water. It does. It is 71% covered in water. But how much of that wet stuff can we use? Out of all the water on this planet, only 3% is fresh water. Even more surprising is that less than 1% of the Earth's water is accessible for people to use. The rest is locked away in the soil, atmosphere, polar ice caps, glaciers, or is too salty or deep to pump. For a planet covered in water, that is a very small amount we can use. Usable fresh water is found in lakes, rivers, reservoirs, and aquifers. Aquifers are underground storages of water. The Floridan Aquifer is where we get our water in Florida, and it has lots of caves and pathways which create the sinkholes and springs familiar in our landscape. The Floridan Aquifer is considered one of the most productive aquifers in the world, and it is showing the effects of increasing water demand. Did you know about White Sulphur Springs drying up in 1990? What about saltwater intrusion in Cedar Keys water wells in 2012? White Sulphur Springs was Florida's first tourist attraction because the mineral-rich water was thought to have medicinal qualities. It was used for its healing abilities by Native Americans as far back as 2,000 years ago. White Sulphur Springs and White Springs dried up in 1990 because the Floridan Aquifer was being pumped out quicker than it could recharge or refill. Saltwater intrusion is when saltwater enters a freshwater supply like the Floridan Aquifer. Due to groundwater pumping combined with a drought, Cedar Key had a saltwater intrusion in 2012, where salty water was showing up in their wells. They now have to use an expensive reverse osmosis system to make their water safe to drink. Saltwater intrusion, decreased spring flows, and lake levels dropping are some signs that the Floridan Aquifer is being pumped faster than it can be recharged or refilled by rainwater. That is why water conservation in Florida and Alachua County is so very important. On a global level, we are pumping groundwater faster than nature can replenish it. This is referred to as mining groundwater and is similar to mining fossil fuels. Around the world, and here in the United States, we are pumping fossil groundwater. Fossil groundwater is groundwater that took thousands of years to accumulate, much like the aquifer below the Sahara Desert in Africa. Much of this water ends up as runoff or evaporates into the atmosphere. This leads to water scarcity. Water scarcity is the lack of freshwater resources to meet the demand for fresh water. Almost half the world's population will be considered water scarce by 2025. Right now, there are over 1 billion people worldwide who lack access to water, and almost 3 billion who lack access to water for at least 1 month out of the year. This is due to unequal distributions of water in the world, economic insecurities, and overall increase in demands for water through population growth and irrigation, like here in Florida. These are just some of the causes of water scarcity. The future of our springs, lakes, and rivers are directly tied to how each of us use water. The aquifer we use when we turn on our taps and hoses is the same aquifer that feeds our springs and rivers. There is only so much water for us and the environment to share. Water that we use is water that will not make it to the springs. The increase in algae and reduced water clarity at some springs are linked to reduced water levels in the Floridan Aquifer. Not only does this affect the recreational value of our springs, but it also affects the habitats that animals depend upon. How much water do we use? In Florida, we use about 176 gallons a day per person. In the United States, the average is 150 gallons of water a day per person. Now compare that with a developing country like Mozambique. They use only 2 gallons daily per person. People on average drink about a half a gallon of water per day. In Florida, we use almost a year's worth of drinking water a day. What do we use that water for if we're not drinking it? Most of that water is used for landscape irrigation. That's water in our yards. Almost 60% of the water used in residential areas is used outside, mostly for irrigating our landscapes and grass. Consider replacing irrigated turf with Florida-friendly plants. This will reduce the amount of water we use on our yards and will conserve a lot of water. There are many ways to conserve water. Use a rain sensor on your irrigation system. This prevents watering after rain, and they are required in Alachua County. Install low-flow shower heads. Repair leaking toilets and faucets. Run only full loads in the dishwasher, and set your clothes washer settings to match the size of your load. Take showers in 5 minutes or less. Turn off the water while brushing your teeth, and remember to save some water for the fish. Another way we can conserve water is knowing there's virtual or hidden water attached to everything we use. Virtual or hidden water is the water used to produce food, generate electricity, and make all the products we buy at the store. All these things require water to be produced, manufactured, grown, delivered, and finally thrown away or recycled. The amount of water used in our daily lives is much more than what we think we use. We now know the average American uses about 150 gallons of water per day. But when you calculate all the water used for buying and using and throwing away consumer goods like cars, jeans, water bottles, smartphones, and plastics, we use almost 600 gallons per day in water just for those things. That adds up to a whole lot of water that isn't even considering the amount of water used for our food or household activities. Food makes up 80 to 90% of our consumptive water use in the United States. Consumptive water use is water that has been consumed or transformed into something else, like food. The food we eat and throw away adds to our water footprint. It takes 34 gallons of water to produce 1 cup of coffee. 1 egg takes 52 gallons to produce. This adds up to almost 90 gallons of water used for food before you have even eaten half of your breakfast in the morning. For lunch, a hamburger takes 660 gallons of water to produce, and the soda you get uses 46 gallons. You will use 700 gallons of water just for a hamburger and soda. As you can see, it takes a lot of water for us to have the products and foods we use and eat. That is why water conservation is so important. Without water conservation, the cost of our products will increase and our water resources will decrease. This will leave less water for future generations and the environment. To learn more water conservation tips, visit our website at alachuacountywater.org. To find out what your water footprint is, go to watercalculator.org to calculate your water impact. The most important thing is that every drop of water needs to count towards water conservation.
I'm Luke, and I hope you learned about the importance of water conservation. I also hope you learned that the water we use is not always seen. Water is vital for life, and without it, life will cease. Damage due to unsustainable groundwater withdrawals worldwide needs to be addressed before water scarcity becomes an even larger global crisis. The best way we can help is by conserving water in our daily lives. Conservation of water is a step towards true global and local water resource sustainability. I hope to see you in future episodes where we will discuss the many diverse topics surrounding water. Until next time, stay water wise.